Great question. Let's go back to the 914. This is you guys are. No wonder you're the number one podcast. You got great questions here.
How many miles were on it?
I don't know. Take a look. What did it say? You got to turn the ignition to find out. No, I guess the battery was dead again. Like, this is the first US turbo ever sold. Also, documented by the factory. Another lifelong LA car, been painted numerous times.
And used. Magnus, thank you for opening the doors for us.
No worries.
You are automotive star in Denmark. A lot of people know about you, but maybe there's people watching, listening, who doesn't know about you. So, quick background on you. You came here as 19.
Well, first of all, I've never been to Denmark, so I appreciate those kind words. It's on the list. Yeah, I'm born in England, Sheffield. Arrived in LA in 1986 when I was 19 years old. Long hair, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and a dream. And I've been in LA ever since. So I've been here for 37 years.
And it was fashion that brought you here?
No. Fashion came later. I came to work on a summer camp with kids. So I worked on an underprivileged inner city camp north of Detroit on Lake Michigan. So I flew to New York, took a bus to Detroit, spent the summer on this camp as a camp counselor, and then took another bus from Detroit to LA, arrived about 2 miles up the road at Union Station at 5 a.m. in the morning in 1986. And that was the beginning of my love affair with LA. It was sex, drugs, rock and roll. It was Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue. It was everything I sort of was into as a teenager growing up in England. I watched a lot of American TV, Starsky and Hutch, Dukes of Hazzard, Chips, Rockford Files. A lot of these shows were set in LA and revolved around the car culture, factor in the music that I was into, factor the California lifestyle, the fact that the sun always shines. This was heaven for me. Coming from Sheffield, England to LA, it was sort of no contest whether I would stay in LA or go back to Sheffield. And long story short, I never went back to Sheffield.
And now we are at the downtown Los Angeles Arts District.
Correct.
How long have you had this warehouse?
Well, I've been in LA since 1986. I was in Venice before. I moved downtown to the Arts District in 1994. So I've been downtown for 29 years. I bought the building that we're standing in 2000. Okay. This building was built in 1902. It's a total of 26,000 feet, 2-story brick, and I converted it to a live workspace. It was a former industrial building that had been used for everything from truck parts to clothing storage to manufacturing, and I converted it to a live workspace where I lived upstairs and ran my clothing company, Series Clothing, out of downstairs.
And why such a big building at that point in your life?
It just made sense. I'd been renting a warehouse and living in a separate loft, and finally, after 6 years of renting someone else's building, I'm like, why don't we buy our own building? So we didn't actually need a 26,000 square foot building, but we grew into it.
Yeah, of course.
I lived in a 12,000 square foot loft upstairs, and the building's a pivotal part to my story, because without all this space, I would never be able to house all the cars I own under one roof. But how I was able to acquire them and afford them was we fell into the film location business.
Okay.
LA's a movie town, it's Hollywood. Within a year of purchasing the building, we were accidentally in the film location business, renting part of the building out to production companies for everything from small budget to big budget, reality shows, movies, commercials, TV shows, and music videos. So that was how I accidentally fell into the film location business.
So Arts District back then was not the same as it is today?
No, I mean, the Arts District has always been cool. It's always been a place for creativity. Ironically, they've been filming in the Arts District before it was even called the Arts District. Grease was shot in the LA River, which is literally 200 yards from where we're standing. The old 6th Street bridges had everything from Batman, Terminator, Gone in 60 Seconds, every car commercial you could imagine. The Arts District had always been a creative environment that I was drawn to because it was kind of desolate back then. Lots of space to rip around, lots of space to do whatever it is you wanted to do. Fast forward 20 years, there's coffee shops on the corner, there's hipsters, there's art galleries, there's a restaurant next door, there's Spotify at the end of the street, there's Soho House 2 blocks down the road. Warner Brothers relocated its whole musical empire 1 block down the road. So what was once a desolate industrial area that was very cool It's still very cool, but it's no longer desolate.
No.
It's become gentrified. It's sort of become the new Venice, the new Culver City. Downtown LA, especially the Arts District, is a destination that people now come to.
I understand why it's really nice here.
Og så afbryder vi lige YouTube-videoen for at sige, at vi har et show på Hermans i Aarhus den 8. maj. Det er ikke podcast denne gang, det er bare et show. Stig Tøfting. Stig Tøfting, plæneklipperen, legenden. Han er vores special guest. Vi glæder os til at høre alt om hans biler, og det gør du også. Så kom og se os i Aarhus. Du kan købe lidt på det link der.
Det er ikke helt med at tørt drille til Stig Tøfting, ligesom vi drille biler.
Nej, det tør det ikke. Ja. Jeg tør godt, jeg ved ikke noget om fodbold. Jeg tør godt drille Stig Tøfting. Han bliver ikke sådan sur eller hvad. Okay.
Det var f***ing sjovt, vi købte ud, så det i hvert fald bliver lige så sjovt.
Køb billet.
The house, the building. What was the first Porsche to enter the doors?
Well, the first Porsche to enter the door, I had quite a few back then in 2000. The first Porsche I ever bought was in 1994 when I was, actually 1992 when I was 25 years old, was a 74 slant nose conversion. That wasn't the first Porsche to enter this building, but it was the first Porsche I ever bought. The second Porsche I ever bought, ironically, became this car, number 277.
Which is the most famous and iconic of your cars, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of become that way. You know, I did a collab with Nike. We have a sneaker, a dunk based around it. I've done collabs with Hot Wheels. That car's in the Need for Speed video game. But some of the parts of 277, it's nothing special. It didn't race Le Mans or Daytona. Started life as a 71 911T. I've owned it for 24 years. In 2002, I took my aggressive street driving to the track with the Porsche Owners Club, and over the next 6-7 years, did 40-50 track days a year in that car.
Was that the car that kicked off like Urban Outlaw as well?
Yeah, I mean, that car's featured in Urban Outlaw. Urban Outlaw, as you know, it seems like you've seen it, is Tamir Moscovici's award-winning short documentary, 32-minute film that debuted October 15th, 2012. That put myself and Tamir on the map.
Yes.
Tamir is a very talented film editor, director, producer who essentially just made me look good because he cut out all the bad bits and put all the good bits in. And that documentary sort of opened up the world of car culture to myself and Tamir. Tamir went on to have a successful film directing, producing career, and I got invited all over the world to sort of work on cars and visit car shows and stuff like that. But the purpose of that film is it's just a story about my journey. It's not specifically a film about Porsches, but Porsche is the vehicle that takes you on the journey of my life.
I remember when that came out, it was like beginning of YouTube and everything, and it was like the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Long bearded guy in LA driving Porsches in the street.
I mean, ironically, that was the first bit of filming I'd ever done, and that sort of, in a way, set the benchmark. You got to remember 10, 12 years ago, there wasn't a lot of car content on YouTube that was accessible, that was shot in that documentary style. You know, that's a real film. You know, ironically, that film debuted at the London Rain Dance Film Festival in London. We all went to London. It premiered on a Saturday night to a sold-out crowd, and we're like, wow, how did this happen? We didn't know what doors that film was going to open and what journey we'd go on in the past 10 years. We just made something that we thought was cool, that we enjoyed doing. It was a passion project. That was it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that kind of opened the door for both of ours, Tamir and myself's sort of career.
So the 277 in there is all original. This is the only one ever made, or have you made more?
No, I've never made more. People have replicated that car. People have been inspired by that car. I say inspiration is all around. Like I say, that car is a 71T, so now it's 52 years old. I've owned it for 24 years, almost half of its life. I've owned that car. It's the car I'm most comfortable in. I used to say it was like my favorite pair of old shoes before I even had a Nike shoe based around 277. It's spawned countless Hot Wheels. Like I say, it's in the Need for Speed video game. I think the relatability of 277, if I'm honest with you, is everyone can relate to building their dream car, whether it was with the dad, the granddad, the girlfriend, the wife. You know, like I say, the sum of the parts of that car is it's nothing special. No. It's running antiquated setup. See, it was put together with a purpose of being a streetable track car, meaning I could drive it to the track, do track day weekends, wheel-to-wheel club racing at an amateur level, and drive it back. So I think people relate to that story. You don't have to be a Porsche enthusiast to relate to that car. You know, what I've realized is my relatability through things like the Need for Speed video game and TED Talk and various other things I've done is it's not purely Porsche-centric. Porsche is my drug of choice, it's my religion, but the common bond that connects people together is the thrill of the chase of the car, the build, the drive, and the community. So that is transferable, whether you're a sport import tuner guy, a drift guy, a European sports car guy, an off-road guy, it doesn't matter, or girl. People relate to the passion of chasing something down and putting it together.
But in many people's eyes, you're a pioneer, you're like the eye-opener for this, like, I wouldn't say restaurant, but it's modifications. You're like, could you say you almost fathered like the ideas of Singer and Kalmar? And
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I've known Rob before he formed Singer. I've known him for 15 years, you know. The difference between me and a lot of other people that do exceptionally cool stuff, whatever it is it's a business for them.
Yeah.
This is a hobby for me. People have approached me a lot of times, why don't you build 25 of that and 5 of that? You see, there's no one here.
No.
I'm kind of semi-retired.
Yeah.
I've run a clothing company and various other businesses.
So that was my next question.
I don't need the headache of turning my hobby into a business and managing customers' expectations on time frame, money management, quality of product. To me, that's when, if you make your hobby a business, it changes the hobby. So I never wanted to do that. Admittedly, I've built some cars and sold some cars when I'm ready to let them go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to sell something to buy something else or pay some bills or finance something else. But for me, it's an out-of-control hobby, but it's a hobby and I'm an enthusiast. The first car I ever bought was here in LA, was when I was 20, was in 1987, right before I turned 20. It was a 1977 Toyota Corolla 2TC that I paid $200 for. And I drove it around illegally without a driver's license for probably 6 months and then took my California driver's test in that car in 1988. So that was the first car I owned. Second car I owned was probably 1991, was a Saab 900 SPG Turbo, which I loved.
Should have kept that one.
You know, I'm kind of looking for one, actually. I drove one recently.
But it went like, the prices crazy.
Yeah, they're not where they were. And then the third car I ever bought was the first Porsche, which that represented a dream come true. That represented the ultimate freedom of, I had the poster on the wall when I was 10 years old. 15 years later, I acquired my first one. So that represented really a sense of personal achievement, personal accomplishment, and a dream that came true for me. I made it happen. No one gave it to me. I didn't grow up with any Porsches anywhere close to my family, but I never gave up on that dream. And you got to remember, LA is the car culture capital. It's the Porsche capital of the world.
Yeah.
So 30 years ago, these things were just disposable objects that were affordable.
Like a Volkswagen with a nice engine.
Yeah, I mean, I've been able to acquire a lot of Porsches, not just 911s, but specifically 911s, because I never spent much money on any of them. It wasn't until maybe 10 years ago that these things really started going up in value. They doubled, they tripled, they doubled again. But when I started getting into them, I bought a lot of Porsches for way under 10 grand.
Yeah.
4 grand, 5 grand, 6 grand. This was kind of normal.
Wow.
Not a big deal.
It's impressive.
Did you ever hesitate before styling a Porsche?
No, to me, it's a great question. To me, the car determines if it's getting modified. So, great example, I had a 64 911, the birth year of 911. Obviously, that car is not getting modified. The car you're standing next to, 1987 944 Turbo, bone stock original. I'm not going to modify that. The car we're leaning on, 73 914, this car was a perfect candidate for being modified. You know, one time I owned 5 67Ss. There's one right there.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of a car that was modified. Let's go over that.
Also because of the iconic taillights.
Well,
a lot of people has replicated that on
they
their
sort of
own
became that.
models.
The story with this car is, believe it or not, when I bought it, I paid nothing for it. It was barely running. It didn't have the original motor in it. It had a 22T motor in it. So it's a 67S short wheelbase car with a 22T motor in it. So this was a perfect candidate for, this is not a numbers matching car.
No.
Now, I'm not so much a purist, but I'm not stupid enough to know if it's original unmolested, don't mess with it. This was a perfect candidate. You got to remember, these cars 20 years ago, no one was really specifically into short wheelbase cars. Maybe a small percentage of people really knew what they were. So probably what happened with this car was some damage to the motor. The scenario probably went, the guy takes it to his mechanic shop. He goes, well, we can rebuild the S motor, but it's going to cost you 10 grand and take you 6 months. Or I've got a little 2.2T motor in the back there that I can put in for $1,500 and you can have it next week. When this was not a holy grail car, that happened all the time.
Yeah.
Because back then people were probably into 996 GT2s, GT3s 20 years ago.
Yeah.
No one wanted a short wheelbase car. When I started buying 3-litre turbos, people were giving them away. No one cared about those either. So the long answer to your question is the car determines the modification. And this is a perfect example. If you come around, I'll walk you through the car.
But it's like a major contribution to the car community that you sort of make it cool to modify your car.
For me, I'm just adding my own personality. My area of inspiration really is late 60s, early 70s. So I talk about this all the time. It's the Vic Elford Monte Carlo Rally Special all the way through Porsche's first win with Dickie Atwood at Le Mans in 1970 and the 917K. That area is my inspiration. To me, that's the pinnacle of motorsports. You know, the glory years. So one of my all-time fave cars is a 67S short wheelbase sport purpose car. This is kind of an example of that on steroids. You know, this is one of my fave Porsche colors. It's a rhodium silver metallic with Minerva blue and slate gray. But if you look at it, it's been modified beyond a 911R.
Yes.
It's got the very first louvered fenders myself and Rod Emery did. Obviously, it's got the center filled gas tank. This is running a 2.5 short-stroke twin-plug motor that we'll get to that dynoed at 271 horsepower. But if you look at it, this is not a slap-sided short-wheelbase car.
No.
It's actually got long-wheelbase 69 through 73 front fenders, allowing me to run a 7-inch wheel with a 225 Hoosier on it. This is my own wheel that I teamed up with 1552. We took inspiration from the original Fuchs, but we made our own Outlaw wheel over there. But if you come through and look at the car, you know, this is lightweight, stripped out. It's got a custom close ratio 901 limited slip transmission, close ratio gears. But the real heart and soul of it, like any Porsche, is back here.
Yeah, of course.
I found a 67S case. I'm not saying its numbers matching. I shipped it to my buddy Matthias at Wicked Sixes in Hamburg. And he built this custom bespoke 2.5 twin plug short stroke motor that dynoed at 271 horsepower, naturally aspirated on pump gas in a car that weighs about 2,000 pounds with no aero. So you got to imagine the power to weight ratio of this is like the equivalent of a modern GT3 minus all the grip and aero that those cars have.
Yeah.
Has this been a running project, or have you done it like to perfection at the first time?
No, nothing is ever perfect.
No, but
For me, nothing needs to be perfect. Ironically, this car, I built myself a lot of cars. If you've watched the film Urban Outlaw, this is the car that's on the dolly in the film, in primer, with a black hood and an orange bumper. This car was started in 2010. It stopped in 2012. It got painted in 2014. The motor went in 2017.
Yeah.
Some cars happen quick.
Yeah.
914, this happened in 3 days.
Yeah.
This thing took years.
Yeah.
You know,
make a drawing in advance, or you have a picture in your head?
Great question. Let's go back to the 914. This is you guys are no wonder you're the #1 podcast. You got great questions here. So I get asked this question all the time.
No, it's not that great a question.
Well, it's the first time you guys asked it.
Yeah.
My computers. I often say the idea cannot be taught. You either have the idea or you don't. You can't go to school to learn the idea. You can go to school to learn the engineering behind making things happen, whether you're a clothing designer or an engineer or whatever it is. My computer skills are not good. So what I do is I take a photo on my phone, I print it out in black and white.
Old school.
Old school. And then I start doodling. Now, if you look at this, those were Post-it notes that I put on the roof. And then, so I'm doodling here. The whole concept behind the car was sort of this mod op rock and roll style art car with a Union Jack that came off the front arrow without it looking too much like something else that had come before. So really the goal was to imagine this was a former race car that had been painted in a lot of different colors and liveries over time. You know how they are. And then became obsolete, get parked in a garage or out in a backyard or in a barn, and then the goal was to imagine like we'd uncovered it. So I had these renderings, and then myself and Felix Holst, who was the guy I bought the car from, we just did an old school tape job. There was no computer-generated graphics, no program where this was printed out. This was old school, running tape, masking off, and then we rattle-canned it. Took us 3 days to do it, and then we debuted it at the 2019 SEMA show in Vegas in the Mobile One booth. We were in this car in materials less than $500. The car alone, by the time this car was on display at the SEMA show, I had less than $10,000 invested in it. And the only reason I'm saying that is because if you've ever gone to the SEMA show in Vegas, it's generally high-dollar, big-budget builds that everyone spent a lot of money on. This was the complete opposite of that. The moral behind this car was kind of the punk rock attitude of anyone can do it, nothing needs to be perfect. This was a blank canvas of expression done on the budget in no time, not worrying about making something perfect. This, I often say, is the best car I've ever built. And this car was built in 2015. I bought the car as a boarded track car project that had gone off the road backwards, kind of banged up. Acquired the car in March. It's a 1990 964. This car was supposed to debut at SEMA in November. It was finished in November, so whatever that is, 6 months. The goal here, though, was not to backdate or not to update and go wide-bodied like a lot of people do with the 964 platform. The goal here was to keep the 964 DNA intact, but change everything about it. Bring elements of roof yellowbird, channeled roof, rain gutter delete, add my own styling cues, but change everything about it. But ironically, the bumpers are original, but if you look at the hood is channeled. If you look at the roof is channeled.
Yep.
It's got the louvered front fenders. The gas cap comes through the fender filler into the existing tank. Rain gutter's been deleted. Fenders have been slightly stretched, but not much. It's got integrated turn signals. We did something that had never been done on. We did a lot of things that had never been done on a 964, but for me, I love a ducktail on a 964, but everyone's done it. The RS America tail, to me, too wide on a narrow body. I wanted to create something that had never been created before, that couldn't be replicated, that you couldn't go by. You touched it.
Yeah.
This is a 3-liter turbo tail, minus the rubber lip, gurney profile. No one has a mold for that.
That's why I touched it.
It doesn't.
To see if it was rubber.
It doesn't exist. We made it and then did the center channel to match the roof. So in a sea of cars that I've built before that are kind of boy racer color combos or highly graphically optioned, this is sort of stealth wrapped in this what I call outlaw version of slate gray, the classic Porsche color. And the inspiration for the color here was I had a 64 911 that was slate gray with a red interior. So cosmetically, this has had more changes done to it than anything I've done before. But mechanically, it's the most advanced car I've got. It's a 993 3.8 RS spec engine in the rear, running KW coilover suspension, Brembo Club Race brakes. The car, as you see it, basically weighs a little over 2,500 pounds wet with a 3.8 RS spec engine rolling on my 17-inch Outlaw wheels. But if you look inside, it's stripped. It's devoid of anything you need. There's no AC, no radio, no nothing.
I hope you didn't make it too wide to go out.
Well, we drive it in and out of that door, so we can get in and out of it.
914. Next big thing, or is it already a thing?
It's already a thing. Gone are the days when you could buy these, affordably. You look at 914.6s, what they've become.
Yeah, they've gone expensive.
So, next big thing, really, Boxster maybe.
Yeah?
Yeah, it seems like, all the Vatic-cooled cars.
Actually, the 944 Turbo, Anders actually owns, and his dad owns too. And it's like, not ridiculously priced yet.
Yeah. So, this is the water-cooled transaxle section of 924, 928, 944, 968. These three here, 1980 924 Turbo Bone Stock, 1980 Al Holbert Wide-Bodied Edition, and perhaps the holy grail of streetable 924 turbos, the 1980 Carrera GT.
Wow.
But my favorite of all the transaxle front-engine water-cooled cars really has to be the 928. So it's got just enough grunt, torque, and power. If you're talking four bangers, to me, the best of the bunch is a 968.
But
even better than a...
That's not expensive today.
Well, ironically, I think 968s are more expensive than 924, 944, and to me, these are more expensive than any of the other four-cylinder transaxles. This one happens to be a 95, the last year of the 968. This one, ironically, was delivered to Brumo's Porsche in Jacksonville, Florida.
And it's stock?
Stock. So this car, I haven't modified it. Ironically, this car is weirdly modified because my buddy, Mitja Borkert, who was once the head designer for Porsche and now is head designer over at Lamborghini, he designed the Urus. A year ago, before he was going to Pebble, he loves to doodle. So he was doodling on my car. I go, sign it, I'll leave it on there. So this car is customized, but not by me.
Hey, stop. Hvis du er kommet så langt i videoen, må det næsten betyde, at du kan lide, hvad du ser. Og det er godt. For Bilklubben har brug for din hjælp. Lige nu leder vi nemlig efter sponsorer til vores YouTube-kanal, så vi kan lave meget mere fedt content til dig og alle dine bilnørdede venner. Det betyder, at din virksomhed kan få jeres logo til at sidde lige der, eller der. Lidt større endnu. Perfekt. Kan din virksomhed se et match, så kontakt os på hej@bilklubbenpodcast.dk for mere info og priser.
Several years ago, I was looking for specifically a Gen 1 996 GT3. These cars never came into America. We got Gen 2. And next year, we'll be able to bring them in on the 25-year gray market. So I think a Gen 1 996 GT3 is a car on the rise. This is obviously not that car. But when I was looking for an aero kit version, like, the GT3 lookalike, I got a message from someone who said, I know this is not what you're looking for, but I'll practically give it to you. I go, well, what is practically giving it to me? And it's a 2004 Gen 2 996 slate gray. He goes, $5,000. I said, does it run? He said, yes. Whoa. I said, you know what? I'll buy it. How bad can it be, right? So I get the car here, and it runs relatively nice. My girlfriend Hannah says to me, how many miles are on it? I go, I don't know. I never asked him. It's a $5,000 996 and it runs. And ironically, I hadn't moved this car in about 2 years. And admittedly, the battery is flat, but I'd left the hood open. I charged it up. I swear to God, it started first time.
How many miles were on it?
I don't know. Take a look. What does it say? You got to turn the ignition to find out. No, I guess the battery's dead again. Yeah. We don't know.
That's a mystery.
Last time when I looked, it's about 150,000 miles. Mileage doesn't matter, because if you follow me through...
So that's your daily?
My daily. I drove it in today. Wow. So, this is a very interesting story. 2 years ago, I was looking for a 997 Turbo. I'm a goal-orientated collector. The goal is one of everything when it comes to Porsche.
Of course. Makes sense.
Yeah, so... get a hold of my buddy who's a broker. I tell him what I'm looking for. He says, I don't have that, but I've got a 991 Turbo S. I go, oh, I'm not really interested. Never thought about one. He goes, you're going to like this one. I said, why? He goes, one owner car, 160,000 miles on it, pennies on the dollar. So I go down, I buy it straight away, but I'm not in love with the car. It does everything right, but it's kind of common here in LA. I don't get out of it and look over my shoulder. You know, it's fast, but it kind of lacked a bit of soul, I thought at the time. But what changed was I took an 800-mile road trip from here to Moab in a day. Yeah. I didn't get out beat up. My ears weren't ringing. My back wasn't sore. You never want to do that in a GT car.
No.
Today, this almost has 176,000 miles on it. If you want to go up your favorite road, it's as fast as a GT3. If you're stuck in traffic for an hour doing 10 miles an hour, it doesn't beat you up. If you want to do 1,000 miles in it, it doesn't beat you up. This is the Swiss Army knife of 911s. It was a mature one owner who lived in Newport Beach and commuted to Beverly Hills 50 miles a day. Wasn't five bros thrashing the shit out of it. It was one mature owner.
It's a triple manual. No, it's...
The Turbo S is all automatic, PDK.
Okay, yes.
You can't get a manual Turbo S. You can get a manual 991 Turbo.
Yes.
To put it in perspective, in 2014, this was king of the hill. You couldn't get anything better from Porsche. Really, unless you got a 918. This was it. Had a sticker price of $193,000. This guy's in it $250,000. He replaced the transmission at 120,000 miles, cost him $25,000. Whatever it needed, he spent money on it. I paid $60,000 for it. Pennies on the dollar.
It's your best buy ever.
I don't know if it's my best buy ever. I've had better buys,
Yeah.
but this is the daily that I don't mind parking on the street. I'll even let a valet park guy park it. Weirdly, in LA, it sort of blends in.
Yeah.
Did you paint the hood
I
yourself?
painted the hood. I was going to add some more modification to it.
What would you want to do?
I was going to do a few things. I was going to put it on bronze wheels and add a few graphics to it, but I said, you know what? That's enough. I don't need to modify it anymore.
It looks good.
That looks stunning.
This was the rollout color. When Porsche launched the Turbo S, it was a rhodium silver metallic with red interior. You look at it, like my dog's in it all the time, but this is not wear and tear of a car that's got 176,000 miles on it.
No.
I mean, look at the mileage.
Yeah.
Does she
It's
like it?
175,822. It's about to hit 176. So the first 996 I bought was this, 04 GT3. The second 996 I bought was this, 02 GT2.
Did you add the stripes yourself?
Yeah. This, similar car to the Turbo S outside, lifelong LA car, I'm the third owner. I bought it, had almost 90,000 miles on it, on a GT2. These are reliable cars. The third one I bought was the Aero Kit one right here, the 99.
Do you ever drive it still, or
Yeah, I drive it.
time to time?
You know, things rotate.
Yeah.
It depends. You know, for me, I like variety.
Yeah.
So having variety of cars is, if I want to imagine 1966, right here, boom.
Yeah.
I'm back to 1966.
Yes.
So I like variety. It depends where you want to go and how you want to get there.
You
Yesterday,
actually-
I felt like I needed an aggressive street drive, pulled out 277.
You actually have it. I didn't think you had this car.
Not the original.
No.
This is the second 74 slant nose turbo look.
Last time we were here, we went to see Bruce Meyer.
Oh, yeah.
He had the
The
Le Mans
Winning
one.
Brothers, yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah, pretty cool story.
Great guy, Bruce
Yeah.
Meyer.
So here's an example of another 67S. See, it's really narrow base compared to the modified one with the slight
Yes.
fenders.
And this one is a turbo with an aero kit?
No, that's just bone stock Carrera.
All right.
Aero kit, no turbo. I don't own that.
An Aero Kit, was that a option back then, or?
Aero kit really was the US market version of a GT3 lookalike. Wasn't a GT3.
Stock, factory.
But looked like a GT3. You know, just like they did in the 80s with the, the M4, whatever it was, 430, turbo, wide-body look without the turbo.
Yeah.
This was for the US market that couldn't get the GT3.
And when you haven't styled this, is it because you thought it was too good for styling? Or,
I don't have to style everything.
No.
You know, I'm known for modifying, but half the cars in here are not modified. Like, this is the first US turbo ever sold. Also, you know, documented by the factory. Another lifelong LA car, been painted numerous times.
And used.
Unused. Other than lowering it and putting it on wider wheels, this is not modified. I'm not going to hot rod the first US turbo ever sold.
No.
This is just way too of an important car. You know, these early turbos, you know, that's a 75 right there, the ice cream metallic one. They made 284 of them in 75. They're still making turbos today. When I think of Porsche, poster on the wall, white martini turbo.
Yeah.
So to me, this is my love affair with Porsche right here, is a 930 turbo. By today's standard, these are not great performing cars, you know, but there's a real reward to getting the most out of the performance. 12 gears, turbo boost, port brakes, everything you know about them, right?
Do you have anything in your thoughts right now that you want to purchase?
Not in the Porsche world, no.
What
Loosely, yes. My goal is one of everything that's front engine, mid engine, rear engined, air and water cooled in a sports car. I'm not interested in a Cayenne, a Macan, even though they're great cars.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of great drives in them.
Boxster? You
No,
said it.
Cayman.
Yeah.
I like a roof. So as great as the Boxster is, and that is the next big thing, I've been saying that for 5 years, I don't like convertibles. Too much wind in the hair, beard. So Gen 1 Cayman or a Cayman R.
Yeah.
Not a GT4. I mean, as great as they are, or a GT4 RS, they're almost too much of a race car for the street.
Yeah.
Gen 1 Cayman, the purest. I like the beginning of things. 75 turbo, 64 911, that early silver 928 outside, one of the first 100 built. People will say a GTS is a better car, maybe. But I like the beginning of it, so hence Gen 1 Cayman, for me, it's the purest form. It's the beginning of it.
And I know it's expensive, but like a Carrera GT, or ever thought about?
No, I've driven them. That's OPP. I don't have that type of money.
No.
The greatest thing about Porsche is OPP, other people's Porsche.
Yes.
You don't have to own them to experience them. You know, I've driven the 959 Carrera GT 918. Never lusted after trying to own one.
No.
And they're just so expensive. That's all you got?
Do you have any more questions, guys? Wow.
Thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you, mate.
Oh, no worries.
Starstruck.
Have you met Kalmar, you know, the Danish?
No, I never met him.
The Danish restaurant of Porsche, like singer?
Well, interestingly, the guy behind that, Jan,
Yeah.
I drove across Australia with in a Cayman. So he's building those cars.
Yes.
That guy sends me WhatsApps all the time. And my buddy, Tom Christensen,
Yes.
who's involved in that, I took a drive. Tom Christensen and I share the same birthday, same year, July 7th, 1967. So I was up at Laguna Seca, Monterey Historics. I took a spirited hot lap with TK, Tom Christensen, and the Audi e-tron on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I saw him recently, Jan,
nice
the guy
guy.
behind the
Yeah, the Kalmar. Yeah.
Kalmar company. I literally drove across Australia with him as part of this Porsche World Expedition in 2017.